Friends, welcome to this video program for the course 518, MDE 518, that is Educational Communication Technologies. For this, today I would like to talk about the managing technological change. So I will link it up with the course a little later. Before that, let me give my introduction to you all. I am Professor C.R.K. Murthy, Professor of Distance Education at Staff Training and Research Institute of Distance Education, which is an integral part of IGNOU, Indira Gandhi National Open University. I have been working at STRIDE for the last 30 years plus, who are involved in various short-term training, long-term training programs at STRIDE, and I am one of the coordinator of MADE courses. The course which I coordinated is the Management of Distance Education. Of course, that is still not relevant to you at this point, but I would like to link it up with my today's video presentation with the course 518, MDE 518, that is Educational Communication Technologies. I think you are familiar with that. In that there are 4 or 5 blocks, and this particular video program titled Managing Technological Change belongs to the related to the block 1. Block 1, title of the block 1 is Communication Technology Basics is the block 1. In that there are 4 or 5 units. The one which I am going to talk about, the Managing Technological Change, is particularly related to unit 4 of the block 1, that is Managing Technological Change. This is the focus of today's lesson. This video lesson we will be concentrating on. I think you are all familiar with what is change. Change is what generally we say that natural, change is law of life, change is part of life, change is inevitable. Naturally, a change, without change, I think life will become come to standstill. So naturally, change is a natural process in every sphere of life. I think that's where it happens all the time. You and I may recognize it, realize it or not, change keeps on happening in every sphere of life. And everywhere. It's not only that one particular place the change takes place, another doesn't take place. It is a forest, or it is a society, it is an urban society, it is a rural society, it is a tribal society. Everywhere change keeps taking place. I think the nature, flora and fauna keeps changing, and the human beings, the one generation goes away, the second generation, third generation, it keeps happening. I think this is a change. Why change takes place? I think there are many reasons. There are many reasons. As I said it happens all the time and everywhere, and change occurs due to various reasons. That is, it's the natural way in course of time. I think a child born keeps growing and evolved into adult. After that, youth, and then comes to the middle age, come to the old age, and then of course that's one way of looking at it. In the same way, a small plant grows into a big tree, youthful plant. I think that itself is a part of a change. I think that's where. I think a small plant which you keep it today, I think after a few years it becomes a big tree. That's what is the natural way of the change is occurring in the societies. And calamities. Natural calamities comes many ways. What is that? It is the floods. It is a fire accidents. I think it is a heavy rain. I think it's a climatic changes. I think these are all taking place. I think one best example is climatic changes is leading to what? Leading to even a total weather conditions are changing. So these are all part of it. So naturally, the best example which under the natural calamities I prefer to give as an example is that this corona pandemic which we are all facing, the world is facing. I think it is a big thing which is a pandemic, and the pandemic has resulted in the lifestyles, in the change in the total lifestyles. I think what you call this, whether it is a negative change or positive change is a debatable issue, and we can do it later. But this calamity, this pandemic, the present one the world is facing it, is changed the way of life, changed the way we human beings look at the things. I think what we call it is wearing a mask. We never put on a mask in our lifetime. But you see the whole humankind across the societies, across the continents are wearing the mask. So this, how the changes bring in. I think suppose one natural calamities is changes in the temperatures. The whole world is worried about it. Temperatures are rising, naturally that will the change in the weather. So these are all natural changes. And then we can categorize another type of change is that man-made changes. What is the man-made changes? Building the big dams across the rivers, big developmental projects, developmental schemes and developmental activities. Naturally, for the welfare of these human beings, the governments plan these things. So naturally, you know the resistance which comes when building the dam. Naturally, you have to vacate the people who are coming in the way of building the dam. So naturally, the low-lying areas, there are plenty of villages will be there. All those villages have to be removed, and the people from those villages have to be shifted to another place, and they have to rehabilitate them, build their houses for them. So these are all the part of changes. I think that's where, particularly with my background as anthropological background, anthropology, as a student of anthropology, we know that in many tribal areas where these developmental schemes takes place, there is a lot of resistance. That's not only tribal area, even urban rural areas, these resistance do come. The government says that, okay, we are going to construct this project in this particular area. You people have to go to the different location. We are constructing homes to you. We are constructing a beautiful schools to your children. We all say that. But how many people are going and shifting to those places? Particularly in the tribal societies, we have seen the houses built for them under the developmental schemes. Many tribals resisted, those houses even lying vacant many decades. I think this is how the man-made changes for the welfare of the human being, building a dam, projects and developmental schemes, how these are all aimed for the changes. But the changes will have an effect on the people who are living in these areas and how they resist them. So this is where the change is not a simple thing. If you want to plan it, if you want to implement it, I think this is a very complex process. Unless you convince those people who are affected by the change, you convince those people who are being replaced from the original dwellings and original areas to some other thing. These are the issues which we will be talking in this particular class. I think that's where, and particularly the last category, you can see the slide, what I am talking about is technological changes. So we talk about natural change, natural calamities, how it brings the change, man-made changes. Now technology also brings, naturally, yes, technology brings a lot of changes. I think now the whole world is revolving around the technology. I think a decade back or 1.5 decade back, many of us do not know what is a mobile phone. Forget about mobile phone. We don't know even about the landline connections. Many houses do not have at that type of time. So these mobile phones, etc. But now you can see that. I think even in rural areas, urban areas, semi-urban areas, tribal areas, every human being, whether literate or illiterate, is using the phone and mobile phone and talking. I think this is a big change. Why it has come, how it has come, there's a different issues. But the technology is bringing a change. I think that's where, when you bring technological changes, suppose I think the mobile phone is a one, and then even the television. Television, many houses do not have in the rural areas a decade and a half back, 2 decades back. But every house has the television. Now, earlier we used to have the black and white screens, but now we have the color programs on the television. These are the technological changes. Things are moving. Things are going ahead. So, when you plan a technological change, there is bound to be a resistance. There is bound to be a resistance, and there will be many other barriers which used to come. We'll talk about this thing in the next slide. Let us move to the next. And before we talk about the how to manage change, what are the various factors, what are the various models available for the change management, let us understand the change. And this is very important. I think, as I said, it's understanding the change and managing it. Both are difficult. First of all, I should see that this is a change which is happening. This is the thing which is bringing the change. This is an innovation. This is an instrument which is bringing a change. If I understand that innovation which is bringing a change, then only I try to manage the same as a leader of the institution or a leader of the organization. So it's a very difficult component, understanding the change, planning the change, and managing the change. I think that's very important. And then we call always organizations, some are successful and some are not successful. Why we call that? I think it depends on, we say that, oh, this leader is a good and he runs this organization very effectively, that's why it's successful. The other organization is not so successful because his leader cannot understand the things, he cannot manage it, and he cannot distinguish between what is the change, how the things work, how to manage. So this is how one manages and distinguish the change. Is the difference between successful and unsuccessful organization. Every leader puts an effort to bring a change in the organization. And then how to bring that change? A leader who understands how to bring, how to plan it, how to implement it, that's where the successful and unsuccessful issues do matter. And then organizations that predict and manage change effectively, yes. As I said it, which organizations proactively think and predict, okay, this particular change I have to bring, and this particular change I have to plan in this way and manage this change very effectively. I know that my followers, as I am as a leader, my subordinates and followers will resist the change. So how to overcome this is how the planning and managing and the change. That organizations which plan, which predict, which proactively follow the things will survive and will survive in future. This future is which are full of competition, full of time, difficult times. One example here I can quote it here is particularly you see this. As again, I take an example of the current corona pandemic which we are facing it. I think the schools, institutions, organizations are, all the colleges, universities are closed for the last more than 1 year plus. Yes, 1 year, almost closed. What happens to their education, children's education? What happened to the students' education? And then many institutions who have the expertise, they started online. But is it the same thing? All the institutions know the online thing? No, it's not the case because we never practiced online education, particularly at the school level. So naturally, so that organizations who are ready, who can manage things, that they went ahead with the online teaching during the pandemic, but many institutions could not. But one example here itself is a school education. When the online classes are there, I think children is undergoing a lot of stress. The many state governments said that, no, I think you cannot tax the children, you cannot burden the children, so your online classes cannot be more than a few hours, 1 hour, 2 hours, depending on the class. So this is how you manage it, how competent, how effectively you plan and manage the change do matter. As explained earlier slide, change occurs, as I have already talked about what are the various reasons for the change. Change may be because of internal factors and because of external factors. Both factors are responsible to bring the change. External factors like the government is insisting that you should introduce these schemes in our organization. This is the external factor. Governmental policies do force the organization to take one. This is the external factors again. And then COVID is not internal, it is an external factor, it is an external force which brought institutions to go for online learning at every level of education. I think this is external factor. What are the internal factors that demands the change? Suppose institutions. Earlier, we used to have only public funded governmental institutions, but last 1.5 decade or so, many private institutions have come up. Whether it's school level, college level, university level, many private institutions have come up. Not only private institutions, even the institutions from abroad. Overseas came and started offering their programs in the Indian market. So naturally, all these things result in a lot of competition. If you want to face this competition, organizations have to brainstorm themselves, think themselves internally and make changes accordingly. I think this is what the internal needs, internal demands to face the competition. I think this is how you have to understand the change. I think this is as a student, before you understand the technological change, I think these are the few factors you as a student should know about it. As I said it, change may be planned or unplanned. I think large extent we are talking about the planned change. I think planned change is one where we systematically plan it, and when change is due to induction of new technology, particularly now the institutions, as I said a minute earlier, the technology and online learning which is happening at the school, college, university levels, naturally is my faculty are ready? Are all the students are ready for online technology? This I have to plan it. And then it has to be systematic planning. Suppose when I am using the online learning, all my students have the computers, if desktop or laptop or other instruments to receive my online learning. If they don't have, if a majority of them don't have, then what is my planning of the online education? So this is where a systematical planning and managing change is the planned change, what we call, particularly when you are introducing the new technology to bring a change. I think that's what we are going to talk about mainly on that. Unplanned change, change management to facilitate organization the planning is always helps to execution and a systematic execution, and once you systematically execute your planned change, then naturally your subordinates, your employees are ready to accept it, adopt it, and then of course integrate it and overcoming all the barriers or resistance. I think that's where the planned change. Unplanned change, we have already explained that external factors like the pandemic or the other natural calamities which time it brings unplanned change, and then we have to face that type of things. That's what the online learning which has brought is a change which has come because of it's an unplanned, it's not expected. That's where. Then, as I said, that resistance and technological changes. Naturally, resistance is not only for technology. Resistance generally we come across any change. I think so. Particularly, I used to show a resistance even if a small change in my home. I think that's a natural, what you call the inherent quality in majority, if not the present generation, they say that, so we keep changing every minute, but naturally we belong to the older generation. I don't think that at least I am ready to change myself every minute or every hour or so. I think that's a resistance. Generally we resisted changes in general education or changes coming because of technological changes, technology changes. I think this resistance is a common aspect to any type of change. I think as a planner, as a leader, you have to understand that, you have to anticipate that. You have to anticipate that what barriers will come, what source, what corner your resistance come. If you identify those things, you will be in a better position to plan, execute the change in the organization or institution or in society in general. Technology, whenever you introduce a technology, particularly in education sector, there is a bound to be, even in society, the technology we bring in, naturally there will bound to be a resistance. One example, I will give it and move to this one. When the railway, in the British time, when the railway train came, introduced into the remote areas of rural areas and tribal areas, people resisted it. What is coming? They don't know. It facilitates you travel to one place or another place. They are scared of it. They are scared of it. So from there, you came a long way. I think we are using technology in every sphere. In every house, we have what we call the fans. We have refrigerators. We have the fridges, washing machine, television sets, whatnot. I think from that example of a train entering into remote areas during the British period and after that. So that's where the technology. And then another example I can give is technological changes, how the resistance come is. In 80s, I think it's mid 80s or 84, 85 or 86, computers were introduced in the railways. That's the first time computers were introduced in the railways to bring a qualitative change. Suppose I remember when I go to a station to book my ticket, I have to stand in the queue for booking ticket reservation counter almost half a day to 1 day. I think I faced it. Then the government, to facilitate, to bring in a lot of change in that, the computers were introduced in the railways. There is a lot of resistance not only from the society, not general public, it is a resistance from the employees. Employees working in railway and counters and various clerks and officers, they said that the moment you bring the computer technology, all our jobs will be lost. I think this is where. But I think the government at that point of time convinced the people and then introduced the technology, computers, and you see what type of facilities we are facing it, and where we used to stand 1 day or half a day to 1 day in the counter to book a ticket. Now you can book from your home online and through the help of the computers. That's where the technological changes how the. And then when the schools, computers were introduced in the schools in the late 60s and early 70s, particularly to experiment with the computer education, but there was a resistance. People used to tell there is no classroom, there is no electricity in my school, and there is no proper place to keep the computers. So few schools opened the computers and started operating. Many schools kept the computers as it is, which dust gathered on the computers for years. I think this is how. And why we resist is simple. Why we resist is generally we are used to a particular system, we are used to a particular practice. Any change in that, as a human being, we resist it. Okay? I may resist more, you may resist less, but we all resist that type of thing. At the moment we come out of that mental makeup, I think we accept. Best example is how the computers brought a qualitative change in the railways and in the way. Now every office, forget about railways, every office have the computerization, every office facilitate the things. I think this is how. Some others fear, technology phobia, fear of technology. Oh, I cannot work with computer. I think best example is, again, I can take my example. I think I was hesitant to use the computer initially. I think my colleagues used to tease me, Murthy, start using it. But now I am not expert even today, but still I start using the computer. Even now I started using the computer on the mobile. Using the mobile and doing my emails, sending the emails, receiving the emails, and you see the change. And then we fear it, but the moment you leave that fear, you come out of that fear, technology will facilitate. I think after the introduction to change, introduction to resistance and all those things, what are the stages in change process? I think whenever you are planning a technological change or any change in the organization, you have to think about these 5 changes. What are that? Idea. Why you want to use this technology or even a new concept you want to bring into the organization, you have to have a clear idea and you have to have an innovation. I think that innovation should be ready to plan the change, various change. That's what. You are clear about idea, you are clear about the innovation which you are bringing into your organization, then try to install that. Okay, in this organization, I am putting this technology today. After that, the second stage is it will go under a trial. So it's not that immediately you are making it as a mandatory. The trial, let the people face it. Let the people understand the technology, understand your new concept of whatever the case may be. So once they understand, the trial system goes, now then comes it, yes. My example, I said initially I was hesitant to use the computer for sending the emails or receiving. Now I know that how fast you can send the message to various people, how it facilitates the instant communication to your students. So that is now I am in a position, I am adopting this. I am adapting this technology, I am adapting this change. So naturally, once that is adopted by the organization as a whole or the part of the organization, then you can say as a leader, okay, then let me evaluate it. evaluation of that process. It's not a summative evaluation, it's a formative evaluation. Formative evaluation of these stages: installation, trial and adoption. If there is any errors, if there are any errors, you rectify that. That is the purpose of formative evaluation. Once you rectify that, yes, now it is a foolproof. I have rectified the internal problems, whatever there you can ask your organization, internalize that change process, internalize that technology. That will lead to the total change. So these are broadly the 5 stages in the change process. Technology, basically, it facilitates, it enables educational transactions, particularly teaching learning activities. Suppose through this video lesson which I am teaching, I think you are not with me, I am not with you, but it is facilitating teaching learning activities. This video lesson, whenever you go through it, actually you will be listening to me, you will be trying to understand, and you will be trying to comprehend. This is a teaching learning activities. Technology facilitates and enables the educational transaction. And technology is nothing but a combination of hardware. Hardware is physical object, the computer, a piece of computer, a piece of telephone is a hardware, it's a physical object. This computer has to be facilitated with the help of what? I am talking to this video lesson. It's my process of thinking, it's process of what I want to teach. It is a software which is recorded and brought to you as a process of thinking, as a lesson, as a classroom lesson which I am bringing to you. So it's a technology is both hardware and software works together. Simple hardware will not be enough. Without the software or without the teacher, without his idea, whether it is through direct teaching or through video program or teleconferencing program, in any case, it is the process and thinking process of a teacher will remain the same. Adoption and use of technologies in India, I think we always say that. You see, the developed countries use the extensive use of technology in every sphere, whether it's education, school, college, offices, everywhere, industry, everywhere. Naturally, that's how the developed nation has a sophisticated technological power in every activity of that thing. That's why they are going ahead of other nations. I think that's where, I think one management scientists say that what extent you use the technology in our various walks of life is an indicator for your development. And that's why they call it the developed nations are using the technology in every sphere. Developing nations, particularly including India, as a country like ours, we are still a bit behind when you compare with the developed nations. Okay, we are trying to catch up it, using technology in all spheres. I think there is a long way to go and catch them up, but better start than never. I think you start it. That's why the online transaction. You see the online transaction. I think, have you ever thought of a decade back, 1.5 decade back, okay, you don't go to the bank to withdraw the money, you sit at home and then use the ATMs, go anywhere, and then online transaction, even online payments, yeah, everyone. I think particularly I can quote my example. I used to go to the electricity department to pay the electricity bill, telephone department to pay the telephone bill, but now I sit at home, I use various other online transactions and do the payment. You see the simple change. And many people are doing it in a country. Maybe I think the latest example is, I think the India will be the third economic power in the world by 2030. It's a big agency from UK which predicted 2 days back. Yesterday it seems. Yeah, I think how can we become a number 3 economy, third in the world? Maybe the computerization, technology, online everything put together. So I think management of technology, we have been talking about the last 15-20 minutes. Important to get the most of it. So why we manage the technology? The moment you use it, you get best out of that one. I think that's where. Suppose this video lesson is reaching my students everywhere. I think they are able to listen it. Not at the same time, whenever they're free to them, whenever there's a convenient term. I think that's where. But it requires a systematic approach. Maybe, am I planned according to their syllabus? Am I planned according to their curriculum? I think naturally it will help them. The student reads the printed material and listen to this video lesson. Naturally, it will lead to a effective learning. That's where the systematic approach to any management of technology. And then, issue related to management of technology, innovation and change. I think this is basically what I talked about, innovation and change. I think when is needed, when the innovation is needed, where is innovation is needed. I think particularly technology is an instrument to bring the change. I think that's an innovation. I think that's, suppose one example, concrete example can give is when the distance education was introduced in the country, in Indian scenario, I think almost 1960s, 65, 66, distance education, correspondence education. This is seen as an instrument to bring the change. The distance education is seen as an innovation. Open and distance education is an innovation to bring the change in the educational sphere. That's what, again, naturally, distance education is a bigger one, but it is a big change. It will bring a big change in the educational scenario of the country. That's how it is planned. It is managed effectiveness. Now we can say that distance education, whether it is school level, college level, universities level, everywhere it is offering the programs, attracting the students. I think that's where how you plan, how you bring the change with the help of various innovations and this thing. I think maybe I will conclude with this particular slide. Use of technology in education institution. We have already talked about it. What technology is needed in our institution? Sometimes I as a leader, it's my prejudice. Okay, this technology is not needed, this technology is needed. It's not based on a rationale. It's simply my prejudice as a leader. And maybe my ignorance also as well. I don't know which one is better, which one is not better. I did not consult any expert of technology. This is mine. So that's why sometimes what technology is needed should not be dependent on the prejudice of my leader and the ignorance of the leader. Rather, it has to follow a rationale part of it. What is the rationale? Most of the times, top management prefers technology. The leader of the organization feels, okay, this technology is coming as a grant to institution. Why not to accept it? Is it really useful to you or not? That I have not seen it. But I said it, okay, it's coming as a grant, let me use it. It's giving by the donor agency, let me take it. I think that will not be okay, you take the grant. But will the technology fit into your scheme of things of your organization? Has to be linked properly. Hence, never examine the usefulness of technology. Specific context, yes. To my specific context, this particular. One example, I think in 1993, IGNOU got a teleconferencing, satellite-based teleconferencing from the ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, which has given that one. Very good, very big technological change IGNOU has brought in. I won't say that it is a bad thing, but when it is implemented, naturally what happened, the clientele of IGNOU, the distance learners of IGNOU, most of them are employees. Employees cannot come and sit in front of you for teleconferencing during the working hour. Naturally, when we conducted during the working hours, naturally many students could not use it. So that is where I don't call that as a wrong technology, but the strategy, the planning has to be different. That's what I put it. In the same way, 93, 94, around the same time, Commonwealth of Learning has given an audio conferencing system. But am I using it very effectively? I have not used it. If you have not used it, there's a problem. It's just simply lying in the room and getting rusted and dusted. So this is how one has to see that educational context very. And then framework for use of technology in VDL. I think renowned technologist, education technologist A.W. Bates has given. I think if you follow this action, ACTIONS, then actually you will be as a leader, you will be in a better position to use the right technology for the over context. What is that? A stands for access, how and what extent accessible for learners. As I said a bit earlier, is my technology what I am going to use it is accessible for all my learners or not? If not all, majority of them are not. So this is what extent accessible for learners. Cost, what it will cost, it may be a huge amount of. And then how much it will cost per learner, that also has to be seen. And then T stands for teaching learning. Will it really, the technology which I am going to take it and introduce it, will it really useful to the instructional point of view, the teaching learning point of view? That has to be seen. The I stands for interactivity or user friendliness. Will the technology, suppose this video lesson I am teaching you, we are not having the interactivity. That is the strength or a weakness in that one. So there are technology where we can create the interactivity. How that can be, I have to think about the interactivity between me as a teacher and my learners. That interactivity also can. And then there are quite a few technologies where the interactivity is possible. Not all the technologies may bring in interactivity. O stands for organizational issues. Identify organizational requirements. Is this technology is going to fulfill the needs of my organization or not? That's number one. And then if that is the right technology, what are the barriers I am going to face it? Identify those barriers, remove those barriers, and go ahead with the change in the organization. Novelty, how new is this technology? How suitable to my context, my students' context? We have to see the novelty, how new is it? If it is a old technology, what you call, you are going to use a very old technology where the whole world has used it long back. So there is no novelty in this thing. That's what the people may say. And the last one is, yes, speed. How quickly can this be integrated with existing technology or with my organizations? These are the A.W. Bates has talked about actions. Any leader, anybody who wants to bring a technological change has to think all these steps. The moment you think as a leader, I think most of the problems which you face while using the technology, implement technology, can be overcome. Friends, I think let me conclude. I talked about the change, what is change, what is the process of change, stages of change, how to use the technological change, particularly in the educational institution, what are the various issues which involve. I hope you will benefit from this video program, you as all the students of 5 and 4. Thank you very much for patient hearing. Thank you.